Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Very warm welcome to everyone. Let us begin with a small prayer. Sarvatma sarvadrugyosau sarvadhyasa nirasakritu satatam sannidhattam me hridaye paramashivaha. Today, I welcome you all to yet another session of Weekend with Wisdom. Today, we have a very special guest, Shri L. Ramaswamy ji. For the benefit of our viewers, audience, I would like to introduce Ramaswamy ji. Sri Ramaswamy ji is a senior disciple of internationally eminent philosopher and spiritual guide of Swami Parthasarathi ji. He graduated in BCom and ICWAI in Chennai and worked with a leading management consultant firm in Chennai for a period of 2 years. Sri Ramaswamy ji is also a member of MENSA, an international society of high IQ people. Sri Ramaswamy ji devoted over 5 years to intense study and research of Vedanta under the guidance of Swami Parthasarathi at Vedanta Academy near Pune, India. During the last 2 years of his study, he was also actively engaged in promoting the knowledge at various cities in India and abroad. Presently stationed in the city of Kolkata, as a senior alumnus of research scholar of Vedanta Academy since February 2002, Sri Ramaswamy ji has engaged himself to full-time propagation of knowledge through study classes and discussion groups of Vedanta. He is also the chief events coordinator for Vedanta activities in Kolkata. He has addressed various audiences in India and abroad on practical techniques and applications of self-management principles based on Vedanta. Today, Ramaswamy ji will be speaking on self-management lessons from Bhagavad Gita. As Ramaswamy ji himself says, Bhagavad Gita is not an esoteric text meant just for seekers of liberation. Like Mother, Gita gives us solace and solution at our own levels. Wisdom contained in the text is universally applicable, pointing out the friend and enemy within us. Gita counsels, let man lift himself by himself. Ramaswamy ji, please start your session.
ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम्. Hari Om all. The topic for this series of sessions is titled Gita for the Effective Manager or Self-Management Lessons from Bhagavad Gita. A caveat in the beginning itself that Bhagavad Gita, the great Vedantic text, the original purpose of which is to show the real nature of the human being, which is the self within. Any knowledge is considered a true knowledge if it is liberating that human being. Sa vidya ya vimuktaye. And when it comes to Atma Vidya or Brahma Vidya, the knowledge of the self, derived from the Upanishad, Bhagavad Gita is considered the authoritative text on that. So, no way that the position of Gita can be any less than whatever the greatest text that we can think of. And that is the essential purpose of Bhagavad Gita, that it exposes the inner self in you and liberates you from all the problems here and ultimately makes you reach the supreme state of self. But what is interesting is, we also call Vedanta, our religion, as Sanatana Dharma. Sanatana Dharma means eternal principles. Eternal principles are those principles which do not change with time, place, or person. We know of certain scientific laws, or all the scientific laws, they are universal in nature. For example, if you take law of gravity, you cannot say it is applicable only for a particular person of a particular country, or it will be applicable in only one place and not another, or one point of time. It is always applicable at all points of time. I'm taking a simple example like law of gravity. So these are external laws. Similarly, there are various laws that are internal to us. The law of neutralization, which probably we'll see in the second session today evening. Law of love, the law of attachment, how the mind functions, how the intellect functions. These are all according to the set pattern. This was how they were functioning 10,000 years ago. This is how they are functioning now, and in future also they will continue to function like that. And it is applicable not just to Hindus, Indians, man, woman, or Japanese or Chinese. It is applicable universally to all. The gunas that are governing the mental temperaments is universal in nature. So that is also there for all and in all places. So therefore, it is called as Sanatana Dharma, and a text which talks about these principles is always applicable. But in another way, we can also derive this meaning Sanatana Dharma when it is applied to a text like Bhagavad Gita. As we said, when right from the time when Gita was composed, we do not know when, 5,000 years ago or even before that, sage Vedavyasa did it, Lord Bhagavan Krishna gave it out in the battlefield of Kurukshetra. Many thousands of years later, Jagadguru Adi Shankaracharya came up and he wrote a commentary on Bhagavad Gita. And after that, many acharyas from many sampradaya, they have written commentaries, they have studied Bhagavad Gita in detail. Many centuries later, Western Indologists, they have studied Bhagavad Gita, and our own Indian great sages and saints and poets all have studied Bhagavad Gita and derived inspiration. What we see is that this knowledge, which was there given 5,000 years back, has been continuously inspiring great masters and common people and people of various backgrounds, scientific backgrounds, everybody alike throughout history. Let us say at the time of Adi Shankaracharya, we don't have this concept of industrial revolution and a corporate structure that we see now. And whatever is the setup that we are living now in the society may not be there few years later or few centuries later also. But as of now, when we see that a person is caught up in his corporate life, then there is a social life, then there is his domestic life, and he seems to be sort of cut off from spirituality, as it were. But whenever he needs some solution, he needs some solace, or if there are probing questions with reference to even worldly matters, what is interesting is he can find that solution in Bhagavad Gita. So Bhagavad Gita definitely is a text which is meant for seekers of liberation, the Atyanta Mumukshus. But the great masters like Swami Chinmayananda and others, they have also interpreted and brought Gita to the doorsteps of each and every one of us, so that we also have that connection. And when we get it connected at our own levels, then step by step we are able to rise in the ladder and go to the higher level where we are supposed to even connect with Gita. So it is like an ocean. When you go with a pitcher, you get that much water. When you go with a big tank, you get that much water. But the ocean is infinite. Like that it is. So if you look at it that way also, it is Sanatana Dharma, because it is a text which is going to inspire us throughout all generations. So when a person is having stress in life, when a person is not able to manage his time, then you need a time management seminar for him. Or what are the qualities of an ideal leader? Because corporate and other structures are based on good leadership. Then what about having ethical and moral value systems there? How to fight against corruption? These are all sort of immediate topics that will be applicable to the corporate as it is. Now, interestingly, if we are able to derive messages from few verses here and there, you will find that all these are taken care of very easily. As I said, the essential purpose of Gita is to take you deep within your personality and reveal the self. But before you go into that, there are various obstacles that need to cross, and these are treated as like pinpricks of life. But interestingly, Bhagavad Gita does not say that no, no, you first prepare yourself and then only you come to me, then I'll teach you what liberation is all about. No, it is able to, that's why I think the text is attributed to Madhusudana Saraswati, then in Gita Dhyanam, he refers to Gita as Amba. Amba means mother. A mother is one who is able to give solace to her son, irrespective of whatever position he is. He might be doing very well in life, or uh, he is very down in life and depressed. But at any point of time, the mother says that don't worry, son, I am there. Like that is the relationship of Bhagavad Gita with us. If you are a student, it is ready to help you. If you are just a housewife, if you want to just do some puja and other thing and have a general relationship with God, or you want to delve deep into understanding of what creation and philosophy is all about, at any stage for any person, Bhagavad Gita is there. And that is why four of the topics that we have chosen is based on couple of verses of Gita here and there. And this is all again inspired from our teacher who takes even management seminars for the corporate, but the essential knowledge is derived from this. It is sad that even in a country like ours now, when we are going to say that we are taking a class on Bhagavad Gita, this message is universally applicable, people are really not ready. But when the same knowledge is given in a package form like a seminar, where you say that you need not bring in the term Gita or something, but you talk about in practical terms, they may be able to open up and relate to it. So we have to approach Gita from that angle only, these four sessions. We are not compromising on the core message that is given in Gita, but it can be taken even to satisfy our immediate requirement here. Right. The topic for this session is Ladder of Fall, one of the famous portions of Gita, where if time permits, we can go a little bit into anger management also. Now, the essential message of Vedanta, the ultimate message of Vedanta is that you are the self, Tat Tvamasi. You are the essential Paripurna state. You are whole, you are full, you are without any void. You are infinite. But in our present state, we are not able to practically realize this. We do feel a sense of emptiness or void within us. And we want to fulfill this void somehow, and for fulfillment's sake, we seek the world to fulfill this void. Now, when we try to fulfill this void, if we look at history or look at our own experience, if we analyze our own experience, this void does not seem to get filled at all. For example, the richest man in the world wants still more riches. Nobody is ready to say that, yes, I am full, I am satisfied, I don't need anything else more. He wants more riches. The most beautiful woman still may want more beauty. The most powerful man in the world wants some more power. We see that as examples in our Puranas also. If somebody is there, he conquers all kingdoms, then he becomes Sarvabhauma, ruler of the whole world. After that, he goes on to conquer the heavens also. Then he goes on to conquer other, up to Brahmaloka also he may go. There is sort of a emptiness that he feels at any stage, that he wants to conquer more and more. Be it power, be it money, be it knowledge, be it a sense of fulfillment at emotional level. At every stage, there seems to be that wanting more and more, which never seems to get fulfilled. So we have here these two sides of the equation. One side of the equation, left hand side, you can say is the declaration by the great masters. the rishis, the self-realized souls of the past, who say that I am paripurna, I am full, I don't want anything else. And what is interesting is various great masters at various points of time all have declared the same truth. So that means they have not probably consulted each other and they have not met each other. They might not have even read each other's work also, but from the truth from within reveals itself in the same way from the mouth of all masters. Be it Krishna, be it Buddha, be it Shankaracharya, be it various other masters, Ramana Maharshi, right till 20th century, 21st century also, all the great masters declare the same truth, that I am Paripurna, and they say that message only to the humankind: you are Paripurna, you are full. Don't ever consider yourself to be anything short of it. If at all you consider anything else, anything other than what you are originally, it is an imagination. You have to just you have to realize the self, take off that ignorance. This is their only message from time to time. And since there is no reason for us to disbelieve them, we take it on face value. Of course, it is faith. It is faith. It is Shraddha. And there is, as I said, this Shraddha is very based on strong foundation, but we do not really um, anyway lessen the value of their statement. So, but that is, it's based on faith. So this is one side of the equation, which is declaration of these truth from the master's point of view. From our point of view, the other side of the equation is from our experience. From our own experience, how do we say that what they are saying is true? That it is an imaginary void that we are imagining. It is not a real void. See, it is actually no problem if the void is real, however big it is, and you keep on fulfilling it. They will not have any objection. But this void seems to be something like a Bermuda Triangle. You know, in the, I think in the 80s and all, there was a theory which maybe scientifically it was debunked later on, but people could not understand. They say there is a portion of Atlantic Ocean near the country Bermuda in near Central America, where the ship goes and it suddenly sucked into the ocean somewhere. Where it goes, how it goes, nobody could find out. So it seems that it was going into as though an emptiness, as though. And similarly, then they extended the theory to say that exactly above the Bermuda Triangle in the sky also, when the aeroplane flies, it is sucked away. I mean, all this could be exaggerated myth later on also, but you can understand this concept of this Bermuda Triangle, where something goes there and gets sucked up completely, not knowing where it goes, how it goes, to a a bottomless pit, as it were, it goes. Now, exactly like that, whenever we feel a void, we go all out into the world and try to fulfill that void. That void does not seem to get filled at all. It seems to have a temporary satiation, but again and again it is there. And in history, long history of humankind, where up to whatever time you can calculate and think of, nobody has said about complete satisfaction or paripurna or happiness by fulfilling it from the external world, by fulfilling it from the external world. So, from our own limited experience of ourselves, or if you are able to vicariously see others' experience, or if you see properly read history, anybody's experience for that matter, concurs on this point, that the void that we feel is actually not a real void. It is an imaginary void. Because if it was a real void, it would have got filled at some point of time or the other. If you combine these two equations, the left hand side of the equation is the declaration by the great masters from the realization of the self from within, the truth that they have realized. They say Paripurna, I am full. Aham Brahmasmi, that statement they make, and they also say Tattvamasi, you are that also. You are essentially that also. That is the only message that they are giving. That is one side of the equation. If you are able to reconcile with the other side of the equation, which is our own experience, which seems to get satiated from time to time in a temporary phase, but again and again that void keeps coming. So that means it is scientific enough for us to derive that the void that we are experiencing is not a real void. It is an imaginary void. Once you establish this imaginary void, it is very easy to understand our present state of mind. Because what flows from this imaginary void is the thought. Let us see it here. There is the state of Paripurna. Paripurna is the state of infinite, whole, 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 full, complete, without any void. This is the original state of the human being. This is the declaration of the Upanishads. This is the declaration of all the self-realized masters also. But at present, from our state, we are ignorant of this state. So there is this ignorance of fullness. We are not aware that we are full. We believe ourselves to be a restricted, constricted personality with a limited existence. Our body is limited, our powers of our mind and intellect is limited. We consider ourselves to be a small bubble on the ocean or a wave on the ocean with a birth and death. And that is all caused by the ignorance, because we are unaware of our original state. See, it is not that you have to reach that state of fulfillment somewhere, going somewhere else, or at some later point of time. It is here and now. You are already that. So it is not something to be gained from outside. It is your original nature inherently there within you. But unfortunately, there is a veil, there is a cover, that ignorance is there covering this state of Paripurna. This ignorance gives rise to what is known as this imaginary void. So the void is a sense of unfulfillment that we feel within. This void can get expressed in any area, but essentially all the people who are ajnanis, who are ignorant of their original nature, do feel the sense of void, less or more. It's a matter of degree that differs from person to person, but all of us essentially feel this void. Once this void is formed, what flows from this void is called as a thought. So here is the important definition or a derivation of how thought is formed within our personality. You can take it as a definition, because strictly speaking, thought cannot be defined. Thought is that which is understandable by itself. You have a thought, I have a thought, we understand what that thought is. Now, why cannot thought be defined? Because language itself is the further expression of thought. How can language capture thought? It is just not possible. So if you go deep into what is the essential nature of it, the thought, what it is made up of, or how does it look like, nobody can picturize it that way. But what we can picturize is, we do experience these thoughts. And what are these thoughts? Thought here we can say as thought is that which bridges the gap between imaginary void within you and the object or being outside you, with the hope of fulfilling the imaginary void. I repeat, that which flows from within you to the object or being outside you, with the hope of fulfilling that imaginary void, it is called as a thought. Why I say hope of fulfilling means it does get fulfilled, but it does not get fulfilled permanently. Again, the thought comes. Let us take for an example. I feel void with reference to my purse, wallet. So I feel there is no money, there is a void. So therefore, immediately my thought goes to money. I feel a void or emptiness in my stomach. Immediately the thought goes to food. I feel a void with reference to companionship. Immediately the thought goes to my wife or my friend, whoever can satisfy that. So the thought of something comes with that hope that by associating with that person or that object or that being, whatever it is, you are able to gain satisfaction and fulfill the void that you feel within. That is how the thought is born. Once you understand how the thought is born, the rest of the things is not very difficult to understand. This is the crux. The crux is that we feel an imaginary void Underline that word imaginary, and from this imaginary void is born a thought. A thought is that which bridges this gap to what is internal to you and what is external to you. That gap, that flow, that is called as a thought. Once the thought is formed in your personality, you need not do anything else from now on. You leave it as it is. The mind keeps on mulling over it, musing over it again and again and again and again. That's all it is. So, this indiscriminate thought which is born gains strength by repeated thought flow. And the repeated thought flow is the essential quality of the mind. The moment it believes that this particular object or this particular being is going to fulfill me, it is going to think of it again and again and again. That is the nature of the mind. The nature of the mind is to derive that satisfaction. So it is seeking here and there. Wherever it has got itself believing that it is going to fulfill me, there it will go again and again and again. So if you keep quiet and allow this thought to multiply further, to gain momentum, to gain strength, thought develops into attachment. Attachment, you can take the Sanskrit term here called Sangha. If thought is one ray of thought, a thin stream of thought is called as attachment. A group of thought which forms a thin stream of thought, now it has gained little more strength and momentum, and that you call as attachment. What is the symptom at this stage? When a person gets himself attached to a particular object or a being, he feels comfortable in the presence of that object. He is not comfortable in the absence of the object. For example, a boy is attached to the girl, and there is a set of friends, even a crowd of 100 people. Only if she is there, he is okay. If she is not there, he is not okay. Even in that crowd, one aspect of his personality is constantly looking for her presence. That is the symptom of him being attached to that girl. A person who has bought a new car, let us say he is attached to the new car, even as the car is parked somewhere else, he is standing here. One aspect of his personality is constantly watching that car, whether a crow is sitting on it, whether somebody is going near it. That sort of a link is formed between you and the object. And this is nothing but a consolidation of thought flow. Now, sort of the bondage is becoming a little stronger between you and the object or you and the being. At this stage, you call it Sangha, and in English, you can use the term attachment. So, thought modifies itself into attachment. Again, you don't do anything here. You allow that thought flow to further consolidate, gain strength, and it forms from thin stream of thought flow. It has now become a thicker stream of thought flow. It has gained strength and momentum further. At this stage, you can call it desire. In Sanskrit, you can use the term kama. The principle is the same. The direction is the same. Now, in terms of degree, it has got further strengthened. That's all. What is the symptom at this level? The symptom of this level is that now you are much more than attached. You want to possess it and enjoy it. It sort of belongs to me. That sort of a very strong idea is there. It does not belong to anybody else. This sort of a relationship is built between you and that object. When I say object, it covers everybody, object being whatever it is. So it all starts with the thought. If you are not careful, that thought further develops into attachment. And if you're not careful here, that attachment further swells into a powerful set of thick stream of thought flow, that which you can call it as desire. And this desire is the root cause of all emotions. So from the state of Paripurna, which is the highest state of infinity, we have fallen down to the state of finitude, which is being an individual, and this individual is playing about with his mind, and the mind is essentially the seat of your emotions, your thoughts, and it starts with the thought, it goes into attachment, and then further it modifies into desire. Now, once the desire is there, as we said, a host of other emotions can come about from it, and desire, therefore, we can say is the root cause of all emotions. It is the base, it is the fundamental from which everything now stems out even further. Whenever a desire is there, desire can be for anything. Remember this. A desire can be that many people should attend today's talk. This is one desire I may have. Today it must rain. That is my desire. Or I want to have a chocolate and eat. That's a desire. Or I want Vedanta knowledge to reach the house of everybody. That can be a desire. I want President Trump to be again the president, or I want. See, it can be anything. See, you cannot say whether it is reasonable, unreasonable. That is not in the realm of desire. By definition, mind can desire anything, and it is not in the purview of reason or rhyme, logic. Later analysis can be that this desire is reasonable, this desire is not reasonable. All that comes at the realm of the intellect later on. But once the mind desires, it can desire anything. You can even want to marry the princess of a country, or you want to be a millionaire, anything. Or I want to see God. Anything can be your desire. Or unconnected thing. If there is a yesterday there was a match between West Indies and Australia. Sorry, West Indies and Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka should win is my desire, or West Indies should win is what is the connection? But mind can seek anything. So once the desire is there, there are two options. The desire can be fulfilled, or the desire can remain unfulfilled. The fulfillment or unfulfillment of desire is not completely in our hands. Various factors in the world have to come together to make the desire fulfilled or unfulfilled. See, if the desire is as simple as eating a sweet, you can go to the shop and buy the sweet. Here also the shop should be open and your particular sweet should be available, all that is there. But this is a desire that we can relate to. But if I say now here we are presently in Calcutta. If in Calcutta it must rain now, this is my desire. Now how it will happen? I do not know. It is not in my hands, it's in the hands of nature. But my mind can desire. Or right now I want ₹1,000,000. That I can. But how it will come? I really do not know. But I can desire. So fulfillment or unfulfillment of desire, various factors in the world have to come together to make it happen. Certain things may be in your control, certain things may not be in your control. So there are two ways that the path can take now. Either the desire can remain unfulfilled, or the desire can remain fulfilled. Let us see what happens when the desires remain unfulfilled. It is the unfulfilled desire that causes anger. This is a very important lesson. Desire is called as kama, anger is called as krodha. Krodha or anger can come only when you have a desire in a particular area and that particular desire is either unfulfilled or obstructed, or there is some sort of a stopping to that desire. That is why kama and krodha are two sides of the same coin. These two terms are usually used together in our scriptures. It is interesting. In the same Bhagavad Gita, chapter 3, I think verse 37, Krishna says, Kama esha krodha esha rajoguna samudbhava. Kama, this is desire, this is anger. It is desire, it is anger. He uses singular, but he uses two terms, kama and krodha. So that means there is also an indication there. It is the same kama which is going to modify itself as krodha. Let us take for an example. This is the example. Most of you who would have heard Swamiji also in public lecture, he always uses this example whenever this topic of anger comes. Imagine there is a person, Tom, I'm using the same terms also. It can be A, it can be B. I'm using the term Tom and Elizabeth because it's usually used that way by Swamiji. There is a person called Tom, and there is another girl called Elizabeth. Now, Tom loves Elizabeth. So, from our formula, we know that the thought currents from Tom is flowing towards Elizabeth. This is how the desire is flowing towards Elizabeth. Now, there is another person who comes in between, that is who, let us name him John. John, what he does is, he also, let us say, is friendly towards Elizabeth, or in whatever way, he is now obstructing the desire of Tom. So the Tom's thought currents are obstructed by the presence of John and his attitude and his behavior. So here is another person who comes and he puts like a obstacle to whatever is now smoothly happening. So then what happens at this point? At this point, Tom's thought currents gets deflected or deviated towards John, and that becomes anger. So since the thought towards Elizabeth is having an obstruction, and that obstruction is caused by John, the same thought currents deviate towards John. It is not in the same frequency, but it is in the frequency of anger. So it is a very, very clear indication that anger cannot come unless otherwise there is a desire backing it. See, if we used to watch cricket matches together, India, Pakistan in 80s, 90s, like that. All of us friends used to sit and watch together, and it's a very easy match. India was supposed to win, but somehow they commit some mistakes and they lose the match. So there is a tremendous desire that India should win, and that desire remains unfulfilled. That's extreme anger. Then at that point of time, nobody should come and speak to that person. He'll be extremely angry. But in that same house, my sister is there. She was not at all interested in cricket. Just because everybody is there, she may sit there and see, but she is not connected with cricket. She is neither supporting India nor supporting Pakistan, and nothing is going to affect her. There is no desire at all in that area. When India loses or wins, there is no change in her thought pattern, as it were, per se. She might be happy if her brother is happy. That is a different thing. But here, the win or loss of India does not cause any impact on her. Why? There is no basic desire in the first place. See, it is not the question of whether you have a good or bad desire. The formula applies as it is. You have a desire for being very clean and neat, and that desire is so strong, and it is like a fanatic attachment to cleanliness now. If somebody who comes to your house is not up to that mark which you have set the standard, you will get angry upon them. Okay, here I have a desire that whatever I say has to be understood by you. However right it can be, however scientific it can be, however devotional I can be towards Gita, and I say all this, I have no right to expect all of you to agree with me or understand what I say or understand in the same way that I say. But if I have that desire, that you must all understand and agree and follow what I say, if anybody is not going to agree and he raises a question, it will come out as anger from me. Because why? He is obstructing my desire. So in any case, be it a good, bad, or whatever be the desire, that desire, when it is intercepted, when there is an obstacle, that deviated thought currents will turn out to be anger. And this is how anger is born. Krodha. And a further extension of anger is what you may call as frustration. When do you use the term frustration in English? When a series of desires get interrupted, it may be frustration. Like you get up early in the morning, there's no water in the bathroom, and then there's anger. And because obviously something is obstructing your smooth flow, there is an anger. And then you come out, suddenly there's a current cut. And the maidservant says that she is not going to come today. And you try to boil the milk and you get burnt in the hand and the milk spills. So much of thing that is happening in continuously, you get extremely frustrated. That day will be full of frustration for you. Or any one particular desire, if it is going to be obstructed again and again and again also, you will get frustrated. You want to see a movie, you planned it well. When you start that movie, suddenly there is a power failure. Oh God. Okay, luckily the power comes within 5 minutes. As you sit to watch the movie again, your wife calls and says, "Do this thing for me," and you cannot say no. What for? It is something critical. Change the gas cylinder or something. You go there. Again, the movie is little bit going. You come and sit to watch the movie. There's a call from the office. The boss says, "You have to do this project for me just now." You cannot say no to the boss. And then when this desire keeps on getting interrupted and like this, then it leads to frustration. So frustration is nothing but another form of anger, where a series of desires get interrupted, or the same desire get intercepted again and again and again for whatever reason. And depositing all this anger thought currents on that particular person leads to what is known as hatred, dvesha. So in that same example of Tom loving Elizabeth, the thought currents from Tom to Elizabeth, if you want to call it love, of course technically we are not talking about, let us call it love. So the thought current that goes from Tom to John is based on anger. Now, from now on, every time he thinks of John, anger only comes. And when he deposits all these thought currents, later what is formed within him is called as dvesha, or a hatred for him. Hatred is a sense of revulsion. He cannot stand that person. But in a way, your thought currents goes to him, but it is in the form of hatred. So unfulfilled desire leads to anger. Without going to the root cause of the problem, you cannot deal with the problem on a permanent basis. There are various people who give solutions for anger management by various techniques. I am not going into the validity of the techniques, but unless you deal with the root cause of the desire which is causing the anger, it is not going to go permanently from you. Otherwise, you can count from 1 to 10 when anger comes. In the 11th count, the anger will be more. Or you think of a flower and all the anger will go. You think of a smiling child. Wow, wow, wow. Very nice it is. All this is like putting an Amritanjan balm when there is a headache. If the root cause of the headache is something else. If it is a tumor that is within the brain, you need to attend to that. Otherwise, it will be all surface, superficial in nature, and you will be treating the symptoms, not attending to the root cause. So, root cause of anger is desire. Okay. Now you say that forget about unfulfillment. I have all the resources within me to fulfill all the desires that I want. If I want rain now, I'll go to a place where it is raining. I have a personal jet with myself. If I want coolness, I will put air conditioner wherever I go. If I want to have chocolate somewhere, I will even build I will have a chocolate factory in every nook and corner. Suppose if he is arrogantly even saying like that, when not necessarily arrogantly, even genuinely believes that he has the capacity to fulfill all the desires. Any person who I want to be friend, I can make him to be my friend. All these challenges, and he takes, and he is able. Let us assume he is even able to do like that. Is the problem resolved? No. Even if the desires get fulfilled, they turn into various other modifications here. And what are the other modifications? The first is that if you fulfill your desire, the mind gains further momentum and it wants that same thing more and more and more without any rhyme or reason. And this is called as greed. Greed is called as lobha. Gita says in 16th chapter, this kama, krodha, and lobha are the three gateways to hell. If you want to experience hell, you can choose any of these things. That's good enough. It will lead you to hell, a extremely agitated state of mind. What is this greed? Your mind at this point of time, see, when it comes to this level of anger or greed, it has gained further momentum. You have to understand. Okay? When it has gathered further momentum, see, take the case of this episode in Ramayana where Sita wanted the golden deer, and Rama went behind the deer. Lakshmana, who is usually emotional in nature, he is told that you be careful, that you have to protect your sister-in-law, and Rama goes. And Lakshmana is being level-headed there. So when Sita and Lakshmana hear the voice from Maricha, hey Sita, hey Lakshmana, like that, Sita is extremely now afraid what has happened to Rama. So there is a tremendous desire in her that Rama must be protected. So she tells Lakshmana that go and save your brother. Lakshmana, who is usually emotional, he is calm and quiet, and he says, no, my dear sister-in-law, this is not what my brother has ordered me. I have to be here. This desire is interrupted. So Sita gets further angry and she forces him to leave. Even then, Lakshmana resists and says, my brother can take care of many, many Rakshasas, nothing can happen to him. Again, when there is obstruction, now there is that water in the dam is getting even more potentially powerful. And then Sita utters certain words, probably normally she would not utter. To that extent, it goes. And then we see that it is going into the next stage. Next stage we'll see. Like that, it is further and further momentum is created. And that is what we are going to see later as what is known as this delusion. So delusion comes when any of these emotions goes beyond a point. So greed is again a further modification of this desire that you want it more and more and more. You do not know why, but you want it more and more because the mind has got habituated to it. So till the point you get that object of desire, it appears big, but once you get it, it appears small. And then you want it much more, or you want some more of other things. That is called as greed. In Mahabharata, we see that Shantanu desires Satyavati, but Satyavati says, you have to come and approach my father. He goes to the father and seeks his daughter for marriage. The man who is the head of the community there, the fisher community there, he says, it's a great honor that the king is asking my daughter's hand in marriage. I'm much obliged, but you already have a son by the name Devavrata. After you, the kingdom will go to him. What will happen to the son who is born of my daughter, my grandson? The king comes back because Devavrata is a eligible candidate and he will not do injustice there. So when he is coming back quietly, but he is not able to take his thoughts of Satyavati when he is sitting in a corner and brooding over it, Devavrata asks him and he refuses to say. Then Devavrata finds out the truth by asking the driver, and this is psychology. If you want to know what the real issue is, ask the driver where all he went, and he says this is what happened. So he goes to the head of the fisherman and he asks, what is the problem for you to marry off your daughter to my king? He says, sir, there's no problem, but you as a eligible person is there as the his heir. You will to the throne. You will be the next king. But what happens to my grandson? That is my concern. Devavrata immediately says, if that is your concern, I promise that I abdicate the throne. I don't want the throne. You have to believe my words. And he is really touched and he, with folded arms, he says, such a great sacrifice nobody will do. But what? But now, you have abdicated the throne, but what will your son do? What will your sons do? Your son may say, my father gave away the throne foolishly. We will not give up. So that means the heir to the throne will stop with my grandson. What happens to the future generation of them? This is his thought. And that is when Devavrata takes a vow that he will never marry. He becomes Bhishma. So here imagine the first king he got as his son-in-law. Once that got fulfilled, as it were, that is secured, that becomes small. What happens to my grandson? Once that got secured, that becomes small. Then what happens to my entire generation, parampara? So like this, the mind functions, and this is termed as greed. Greed is wanting more and more. And then once you fulfill and get it more and more, then what happens is that the mind compares itself. When you compare yourself with somebody who has more than you at any stage, you develop what is known as envy or jealousy, matsarya. And this is the base emotion which is being portrayed in Shakespeare's play Othello. It is the jealousy of Iago that is the plot of the whole play. And then that jealousy is implanted in Othello's mind also. Shakespeare says it's like a green-eyed monster. It mocks the prey. See, what happens is comparing this emotion, particularly envy here, to that. Suppose you imagine a big cat has cornered a rat. Once it corners the rat, it is not going to immediately pounce upon the rat. It will play with the rat for some time. And when the rat finally tries to escape, it catches it and kills it. Like that, when this emotions like envy and all catch your mind, it plays with you, it teases you, and then it finally consumes you. Very sad, but that's how it happens. Envy is when you compare yourself with somebody more than you, Matsarya. Then when you compare with somebody who is less than you become arrogant, Mada. And whenever you fulfill your desire, what comes free of cost with it is the emotion called fear. What if I lose that object? That is called bhaya. Of course, fear has various other root causes also, but definitely with an object of desire, this fear is there. You see in Titanic, the movie, all the time the first class passengers where the heroine and other people are there, their their faces with full of tension and full of never ever smiling or happy. On the other hand, the hero is in the third class, always fun, frolic, everything is there. We can practically experience it also. Earlier, there used to be a lot of Bandh and Hartal in Calcutta. And who gets affected by this Bandh often is the daily wage earners, right? Because their daily wage is dependent on their daily work, and that is obstructed. But you take a round around the city that day, they are happily playing cards. They are not as well bothered by it. And we might be tensed about what is going to happen. So, why? When you have nothing to lose, there is nothing to fear. That's what it is. We organized a talk for the Indian cricket team in 2001 by Swamiji before the famous Australian tour of India. And that Ganguly was the captain, John Wright was the coach. And Krishnamachari Srikanth helped us to organize this talk when we met him in Chennai. And all the players were there. Tendulkar, Dravid, Lakshman, and Harbhajan Singh, and Kumble, all were there, Srinath. So it was very difficult to get a slot with the Indian cricket team just for even 45 minutes because they're very tightly packed. And somehow, with Srikanth's help and John Wright was able to organize this talk. So the team had no clue of what Swamiji is going to speak. Even in fact, some people thought Swamiji is coming, some Havan may happen, like that it is. And our Swamiji said later in the class when he narrated the incident that when he went into the room, he saw all the players were there and he has to convey this essential message of mind, intellect, etc. But he said that we could see that the players were not in a mood to receive that knowledge. He has only a small time where he has to convey the knowledge. It has to be in the form of a pep talk. But he said there is a constant tension in their face. So he said, I have to crack some jokes and this and that to bring in a proper frequency and then convey whatever I want to convey. Then he asked us, why there was a lot of tension in the room? There was a lot of tension in the room, in the faces of the people, because to become a member of Indian cricket team from millions, if not billions of people who are aspiring for that, it is not easy. Your desire is fulfilled that you are there in the top 11. Once you get that fulfillment, there is immediately a fear of what if I lose my place in the team. That is there written on the faces of all the people there, he said. So this is what will happen. When there is an object of desire and that has fulfilled you, once the desire is fulfilled, a fear comes along. Now the symptom at this stage of whether it is anger, greed or fear or whatever it is that if you have awareness, if you have intellect, then this momentum at least you can try and control. That means you can have anger, but you can try to control anger. You can try to control your greed. You can try to control your fear. All this is possible. But when the momentum takes a leap to the next level, you cannot control. And that stage is called as delusion, moha. So now you see that the famous 6 modifications of desires are there. Kama, desire; krodha, anger; lobha, greed; moha, delusion; mada, arrogance; matsarya, envy; of course fear is bhaya. All these are the traditionally said modifications of desire. What is this stage and what is the symptom at moha? As I said, when it comes to the state of delusion, it is sort of beyond your control. At that stage, your mind is completely confused. You don't know what you do and how it is to be done, and you are in extremely sort of panicking stage. You are extremely confused. At the stage of other anger and greed, the previous stage, we say if you are aware, there's a possibility of control if the intellect is powerful. Here, it has crossed the breach, it has breached the strength of the intellect, and it has gone to a stage where probably controlling is not possible. That is where we gave the example of the episode of Sita also in the Ramayana. So once delusion takes over, you are completely confused. So any excessive emotion can lead to delusion. Excessive fear can lead to delusion. Excessive jealousy can lead to delusion. Excessive arrogance can lead to delusion. That is why in our Puranas also, this is picturized by various negative characters. You can symbolically take like that. Personification of anger is Hiranyakashipu. Personification of jealousy is Duryodhana. Personification of ego is Surapadma. Personification of desire is Ravana. Like that it is. Each and every person, and each of them, you find that finally they go into that state of delusion. Any each and every day try to say, who are you to God also. Like that they go. It is all coming under this category one. And once this uncontrollably goes further, delusion leads to what is known as loss of memory. Smriti Bramshaha. Loss of memory is you do not know who you are. You have completely forgotten yourself. You can be a managing director of a company and you may commit something which is absolutely not connected with your position at all. Why? How? That is how the desire and other things take that shape at that point of time. Heinous crimes like rape, murder, these are all committed by the mind of such person who has come to this stage, completely forgetting yourself, who you are, what you are doing, you have no clue at all. That is Smriti Bramshaha. Smriti Bramshat Buddhi Nashaha, loss of intellect. Loss of memory leads to loss of intellect. Intellect is the faculty that is unique to a human being. All other creatures are blessed by nature that their life is computerized and a sort of control is there for them naturally. That is why no animal will overeat. No animal will go for mating unless otherwise the season is there for it. And it is perfectly under control. They cannot deviate here or there. But when it comes to human being, we are in the topmost rung of that ladder or the pyramid. But it is the human that suffers from all the problems. It is the human who needs the education for life. Why it is, we do not know. But fortunately, the independent charge that is given to him by nature on one hand, it is also compensating that you are given an equipment called intellect with which you can think. Intellect gets fortified when you study the Shastras, when you study the texts which are talking about yourself. And by original thinking, you have to develop this. This is not intelligence which you gain from an external source. This has to be invoked from the self from within. And that is what is going to do all this controlling. That is the faculty that is the faculty which defines a human being, intellect. And he says, once you lose yourself in the loss of memory stage, next stage is that completely the intellect is destroyed. Loss of intellect. To that extent, the mind can gain momentum and force in any particular desire. See, it can be that you are a great person and you are an evolved person, but if you let loose the mind in any one particular thought, that one thought can gain momentum into this stage completely. And that it can lead you to the final stage like this also. Buddhi Nashat Pranashyati. He completely perishes. This completes the ladder of fall. Now, how do we deal with it? It all starts with a thought, right? First of all, never ever underestimate the power of indiscriminate thought. Do not poo-poo it, do not dismiss it. Just one thought, now what is there? Do not ever take that stance. That one thought has the power to unsettle you. It has the power and the multiplier force within itself to go to such an extent that it can completely destroy you. Otherwise, you are a superhero or you are a great person, all that doesn't count. It is only this window that has opened and it can completely lead you to destruction. Never underestimate the power of an indiscriminate thought. So, what you should do? First of all, any thought that comes, never at least allow that momentum to build up. If you want to arrest a great river like Ganga, you will see that in the very origin or source near Gangotri, where it is there, it trickles in a small stream here, small rivulet here. That's all it is. It's a very small stream. If you want to stop the flow of the river, there only you have to stop. Then it gathers momentum here, gathers momentum there, forms a thin stream, thick stream, and then when it comes to plains, it's a torrential flow of water where you cannot stop the water later on. See, as children, we used to play in the stairs by throwing the ball. Imagine that ball is being thrown from the person who is there in the top of the stairs. The ball is rolling. Ball is rolling and you have to quickly retrieve the ball. If the ball goes to the first step, you can retrieve it. From first step, it will go to the second step. Then if you are quick, you can retrieve it. From second, it will go to the fourth. Then from fourth, it will go to the seventh. Then to the 10th, it will jump off and go like that. Once you leave it in the fourth step or something, it is very difficult to retrieve the ball because it has already gathered momentum. So with that scrutiny of your intellect, you must not allow that momentum to build up. Scrutinize all thoughts under the intellect. So it is nothing wrong per se to have a desire this way or that way. There are good desires also, but all desires must be put under the scanner or the microscope of the intellect. The intellect has to decide the course of action. Okay, so to have desires is natural, the flow of mind is natural, but for human being, the natural course must go to strengthening the intellect. It must, so Swami Ramatita says, to be wise has to be natural. It is natural. To be wise is actually natural, and that wisdom comes by the strength of intellect. So you have to scrutinize all the thoughts under the intellect. Then only decide the course, what should be done and what should not be done. See, if you are fond of sweet and you have not eaten sweet, then the intellect may sanction, go ahead and have it. But if you are a diabetic patient and you should not eat sweet, then the intellect will say no. So it is not the question of something you should do the opposite or something like that. Each and everything has to be scrutinized by the intellect. Already we have a lot of thoughts in our system. We need to deal with them, but at least be aware of fresh thoughts. Any new desire comes, our aim in life is to clear off the existing stock, right? All the things that you have gathered and collected all along, that we need to deal with. Why we should invite fresh stock? So any fresh desire comes, any fresh thought comes, be aware of it. What type of desire it is, and different types of desires has to be given different type of treatments. Um, See, in terms of, they use it in terms of the word karma also. Then there's something known as nishiddha karma. Nishiddha karma means that type of karma you should never do. That type of thoughts you should never entertain. There's a list given, but it cannot be confined in a list. Basically, there are certain type of desires which you cannot entertain in any circumstance. You know, that type of a thing. For example, it is said that poisoning others' food, robbing others' wealth, killing another person who is defenseless, running away with another's wife, cutting a tree which is giving shade to the entire village, killing a source of knowledge. Why will you do such things? Why will such thoughts come? But it may come. Thoughts will come. These are nishiddha, means you ought not to entertain them at any cost. However difficult it is for you at the mental level, just brush it aside that time only. Certain desires are kamya. Kamya means you can, kamya karma are those which you can fulfill. It may be selfish, but it's okay. It can be dharmic. I want to build a house for myself. That's a desire, which is okay. I want to earn money. There's per se nothing wrong with it. You have to fulfill it with legitimate legal means. That's a method of doing it. This again, intellect has to say how it has to be done, and you must not cause harm to others while doing this. This is one type of desires. Then there are other desires which can be good desires. You want to build a hospital, you want to organize a lecture like this, you want to spread the knowledge, you want to donate money to others. These are good desires. What to do? You must welcome these desires. But again, here, you must be careful that these desires also do not get into that stage of momentum by themselves. You will not know sometimes how and when these desires are going to manifest in what way. It is just not in your hands. In other words, say, I'll give you an example. A person has a desire that he must build an orphanage Here in Calcutta, he wants to build, let us say. It's a good desire. Okay? He collects funds and he builds and he helps the orphans. Unselfish desire. Now, having seen this successfully run, now there's tremendous desire within him that he must build an orphanage in Delhi, he must build an orphanage in Madras, in Mumbai, in Bangalore, in every place that he wants to. It's seemingly good desire, but you have to understand the psychology behind this desire. Where it will, see, it is not that at any point of time he is bad or his desire is bad. But if you gain this momentum and this thought that I want to build orphanage, I want to build orphanage, how the resultant will work is you don't know sometimes. Nobody, if you ask anybody, okay, if you say that that person wants to build more and more orphanages, and that is his tremendous desire, it has become now. What is he actually desiring? For orphanages to run, there must be more orphans. So, are you really desiring more orphans? If you ask him independently, he will say no. Nobody will desire that a child must be without the father or the mother and become orphan. Independently, they will not desire and they will not like it. But indirectly, when you are wanting more orphanages, you are actually wanting more orphans. So you do not know where your own resultant desire will lead you. So never even allow the good desires to build up momentum by themselves. It's ideal that you take a project, one or two, ideally with your intellect, fix a goal and work towards it. So this type of good desires must be directed properly by the intellect. And there are other desires which are very instinctive in nature, pressurizing in nature. Desire for marriage, desire for companionship, desire to be loved. Yes, you are allowed to do it. That also has to be done in a proper and legitimate way. So these are desires, probably if it is not fulfilled, it will create frustration for you in life. So with the guidance of the Guru, with the help of the Shastras, we have to understand and categorize various types of desires in various ways and deal with them accordingly. And at the practical level, convert the desire into an aim or ambition. This is where the role of intellect comes into play. How do we do it? See, if left to itself, the mind keeps on craving, the mind keeps on wanting, desiring more and more and more and more. Even if it is something that you want, let us say you want power, you want position, you want money. You want a bungalow, you want a car, and this is what your mind is craving. In the process, what happens is that your mind becomes a mess and you are not even able to work properly and forget about fulfilling these desires. It cannot happen. Vedanta says, why don't you convert the desire into a positive aim or an ambition? Here, we use these terms in the specific way. When it is the desire is indisciplined, it takes the form of a lust, craving, greed, or avarice. All these are terms that can be interchangeably used and used in this context to mean that the mind is desiring it more and more and more uncontrollably. This uncontrollable desire, it is going to harm you in your own progress or growth. Even we are talking about from a worldly person's point of view. If you want to rise in the corporate ladder, if you want to achieve things, if you want to achieve success, this is going to be an obstacle. This point we'll maybe deal in detail tomorrow when we deal with success. So what Vedanta says is convert this into an aim or an ambition. Even to begin with, to selfishly doesn't matter, but have a fixation on life. You say that I want to become. So when it is discipline from the level of the intellect, it takes a form of an aim or an ambition or an aspiration or an ideal or a goal, whatever you want to say. I want to become the managing director of this company. Have that as a fixation. If you have that as a fixation and you work towards it, what happens is that along the way, you are going to get money also. You are going to get name also. You are going to get fame, power, position, everything also. But you will not allow the mind to get into that momentum mode, into that flow mode, if you are able to fixate it with the intellect. So it is better to have a higher desire, a proper desire, qualitatively a superior desire at a higher level. Once that is fixed in quality level, quantitatively you can deal with the desires at the lower level. This is the formula. So therefore, the purpose or aim of development of intellect is to make you think and desire higher. And this is where Vedanta comes in. Vedanta finally says it is not content till it says that you are the self, you are the infinite. You have to pitch up your ideal to that extent. Okay, that may be unrealistic, you can say now, but at least think in terms of your self development, think in terms of a higher position, a higher state. Make your mind expand to believe that you are something very great. We are not talking about ego here. It is expanding of consciousness to make yourself think big. Once you set your sights at such high level, you will find that you are able to control the desires and emotions at the lower level. So what is important is not suppressing or suffocating your desires, but sublimating them by giving it a direction. And that can happen only with a powerful intellect. So the essential message here of self-management is that intellect has to be developed to control the mind. We thought of taking few points about anger management also, but we don't have time now. But we will just conclude with these two verses which form the source of our inspiration for ladder of fall. Verse 62 and verse 63 of chapter 2, which reads as Jhayato Vishayan Pumsaha Sangasteshu Pajayate Sangat Sanjayate Kamaha Kamat Krodho Vijayate. A man musing on objects develops attachment for them. From attachment arises desire. From desire arises anger. Krodhat bhavati sammohaha. Sammohat smriti vibramaha. Smriti bramshat buddhinashaha. Buddhinashat pranashyati. From anger arises delusion. From delusion, confusion of memory. From confusion of memory, loss of intellect. From loss of intellect, he perishes. So we see the power and potency of Bhagavad Gita, that everything is packed within two verses, and it is not difficult to understand. It is comes under the Sthita Prajna portion where he talks about the importance of the intellect. And while discussing the intellect importance, he says what will happen to you if you do not develop your intellect step by step, how you will fall down. And that is why this portion is famously called as ladder of fall. This leads to the next verse, which is a very, very powerful verse, very subtle verse on self-control, which we will take it up in the evening session. Thank you very much. Now, Paramashiv, you are Paramashiv. If there are any questions that we can take up, it's fine.
Namaste. Namaste. Thank you so much for this wonderful session, Ramaswamiji. Viewers, if you have any question, please post them in Q&A box. Ramaswamiji will be taking up those questions now.
Okay.
Ramaswamiji, there are few questions.
Okay, fine. You can read it out.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll read it. Are indiscriminate thoughts random thoughts?
Yes, indiscriminate thoughts are indeed random thoughts. When we use the term indiscriminate and discriminate, when it is coming from the mind by itself, we call it indiscriminate. When you are consciously applying a thought by yourself, we call it as intellect. So intellect and mind are functional differences here. Indiscriminate thoughts are indeed random thoughts. How and where it comes, we do not know. Of course, you can root it to your own vasanas and other things, but it's basically coming up by gurgling by itself.
Okay, thank you. And you mentioned about disciplining the mind. How do we go about it? Is it by grace of Guru or a serious study of Shastras that the mind can be fixed, or how it is?
Correct. No doubt, devotion, grace of Guru, and our all those things helps. But your mind can be controlled and disciplined only by yourself. Okay, no external force can control you. So Gita itself says that the friend and foe are within you. Okay, Atmaiva Atmano Bandhu, Atmaiva Ripuratmana. So the friend and enemy are within you. When the indiscriminate mind is by itself, it acts like an enemy. So a knife in the kitchen can be used to cut the vegetable or kill a person also. How you use it really matters. Now, if you say mind is a karana, it's an instrument, you must not allow the mind to boss over you. It cannot take decisions by itself. That can be controlled only when you develop your viveka or buddhi, we say as intellect. That intellect gets developed only when it associates itself with the higher thoughts given in the Shastras. So, by original thinking, all the thoughts might have been thought of by the great rishis, masters in the past, and it is given to us. But if you are able to think originally, apply your thought originally on it, and you are able to understand the broad principles of life, then your thought gets established in the higher. It is a slow but a sure process. Then you will be able to control the mind. Yeah. So it is the development of intellect is the direct answer.
Okay. And you mentioned about disciplining the mind to achieve something that we want, like
Right.
disciplining it. For example, you mentioned about becoming a MD of a company. When we desire it, we have disciplined the mind. But is it also not desire which would eventually lead to anger and lust and so on?
Correct. So what we are trying to say is, in the initial phase of a career, let us say a person wants money, a person wants to stand on his own legs, his own guardi and other things. It is understandable for him. You cannot really talk Vedanta to him. So for him to achieve certain goals in the company and this thing also, even at the selfish level, you say, have a fixation, have some bigger target for you to achieve. Like that, you can focus and you can grow in this. But that is not the be all and end all, because the inspiration that I have to earn the first million, that is not going to be there for the second million or third million. It is going to become monotonous, it is going to become boring later on, and it is going to lead to the same type of deviations. So sooner or later, you have to be inspired by certain higher thoughts which will come in a paradigm shift. In other words, from Maruti car, you need not go to then Honda car and this car and that car. But you need, let's say you need to go to aeroplane. That is a different level altogether, right? So paradigm shift comes that I do not now think in terms of millions, but in terms of billions, let us say. But how will that thought come? Unless otherwise I have a higher vision. If I'm at the level of the clerk, I will be circulating in that level only. Why will I want to become a manager or a managing director? So Vedanta puts the thought at a higher level where you are now having ideal at a very great and unselfish level, inspirational level. So it is like a stepping stone. The thoughts at the becoming a managing director or whatever it must be used as a stepping stone. But sooner or later, you have to find your groove in higher thoughts, higher ideal in life, which is
Okay.
more unselfish in nature.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. We have a question. Despite doing a lot of sadhana, why do we still get into a lot of unfavorable situations that lead to spiritual decay?
See, the thing is, the sadhana or any experiences of us in this world works on the basis of cause and effect. So definitely for all the proper effect and proper effort that you put in as cause, the effect is going to come. But the unfavorable situation that we face may be due to various other factors that we might not have taken into consideration. Say, for example, at any point of time, when I say that I'm earning and depositing 5,000 rupees every month in my bank account, why it is still showing a negative balance means my overdraft must have been a million rupees or so in the past. It is going to take time. So it depends on two factors. What is the effort that I'm putting in now, and what is the bank balance in the past? What is the overdraft of the past? Similarly, if my past karma and other things which have been, this is all an assumption based on the question that I'm putting in the proper sadhana. It's another matter that I may think I'm doing all great sadhana, but all the thought is on I who am doing the sadhana rather than the sadhana itself. That I'm not really actually properly doing it. So, with the proper guidance from a proper guru and a proper understanding, if you are going to do sadhana, sooner or later your balance is going to get neutralized and you are going to go further. This should not deter you from getting a negative idea about the sadhana itself, because what I go through now, yes, it is past karma where don't have control, but I must have a firm belief like I can mold the future with my present thing. That must be the attitude here.
Okay. And how to discriminate the thoughts which are good and which are bad? What is the parameter to discriminate these?
Right. See, the discrimination in terms of good and bad is relative. We can use the term unselfish and selfish here. These are also rungs of the same ladder. For a person who is at a higher level, let's say, for example, I'm saying, if a person is at the level of a true sannyasi, for him to even just work for one family, it could be extremely selfish. But for a normal person who has not even worked for the family, let us say, is extremely grossly selfish, taking care of his bodily needs only, even at the cost of his wife and children, then even to work for a family is a great thing. Okay, for him it's a selfless act, like that it is. So it is all relative to each other. So how can we discriminate is at your level, if you are able to feel comfortable and happy and satisfactory and inspired about certain thought, that will be good at your level. And if it is going to agitate you and cause tension for you, then you are doing something sinful at your level. So it is basically to understand from the level of how you are reacting to your own thoughts. The indicator is within you.
Okay, thank you. We have a question. In the beginning, you said there are many factors that should support for a desire to get fulfilled. What are those other factors?
Yeah, whatever is the factors that are there in the world for that particular desire, that's what I meant. Say, for example, if it is that I desire, I want rain, that is obviously in the hands of the nature, as it were. If I want to have a smoke, a cigarette must be available, and the shop must be open. So, like I'm saying, so but if I want to, let's say, walk out of the house, that I can walk. That is probably in my control now. So, many of the desires being involving other objects must have a conducive atmosphere in the presence availability of various other factors to get that desire fulfilled. That's what I meant.
Okay, I will take up a final question. Are desire and ambition the same?
Okay, as we said, the usage of the term must be understood in the context. When we use the term desire, it is the desire that is coming automatically from the mind, we said. And in the context of ambition, we said that what you fix by the intellect, that fixation is what we call as ambition. But that words can be used in English in any way, but you have to understand the context. Like, for example, in Shakespeare's Julius Caesar, Brutus says that Caesar was ambitious. So ambitious that he uses in a negative connotation there, that he was extremely selfish and wanting everything for himself in that sense. So you have to
Correct.
understand the spirit of what we say.
Okay, thank you. And we have one more question. I think you will also be taking up this particular topic in the further session. That is, how does one discipline and organize the thinking in one right direction? I
Yes,
think you're
it will
going to
come
take
up
up in the.
probably in tomorrow's session when we deal our success. In the evening, we will do about self-control. So in these topics, it should get answered. But the point is, disciplining is the function of the intellect. So it is the development of intellect awareness that has to be developed, and you consciously taking control of the thought flow is the basic answer here. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Ramaswamy. We will again join in the evening session. Viewers, please join in to our evening session. Ramaswamy will be taking up, and also tomorrow he will be continuing in the morning and evening again. If you have not registered for the evening session, please register them in our Advaita Academy website. Thank you so much. Shri Guru Bhyo Namaha.
No permission.